Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, the first post-transfer window, we're going to talk about what's happened, the summer as a whole, plans for next summer, as well as the whole Jadon Sancho drama and some takeover talk too, as I have some updates I'd like to share there as well. So let's get right into it. All right, so first and foremost, let's just do some house cleaning here. Eric Bailly joined Besiktas, I believe. Is that right? I hope I got that right. The right Turkish club on a permanent deal. His contract's been terminated, a free transfer. Donny van de Beek has been left off of the 25-man list for the Champions League and will be departing likely Manchester United. You know, that's one I was talking about last week that I think went a little bit under the radar, in that he was, he's turned down multiple moves. He's not in any sort of plans. He's not going to be used as depth. He's not a midfielder who has any place at United. And it was kind of going under the radar, just, Donny van de Beek being here still and turning down moves with all the talk about Harry Maguire and McTominay and things like that. And, it was covered a little bit by The Athletic, but this is the problem at United. And it's a problem with the players too, to be fair. But we're going to talk about this because it really relates to Sancho as well. And obviously, the takeover and everything too. You get players who are on big wages. The club are usually not willing to sell them if it doesn't work out really well. And they don't want to leave. And you get this problem within the club where it's like a three-part problem. Number one, they're signed for big wages, so they want those wages. The players want them. Number two, those big wages means it's hard to find people to take players off of your hands because they don't want to pay those big wages. Number three, if you lose those players, you are not guaranteed to get a replacement in. As a manager, even as a football director, you are not guaranteed to replace them. In any other big club, player doesn't work out, you sell, replace, because the priority is football. And I was speaking with someone about this just yesterday about it, because it relates to the whole Sancho thing that we'll get to at the end, but it's the same story. If something isn't working out at a big club, they'll get rid and replace, and they know they'll get a replacement because the priority is football, not finance. At United, it only makes sense if it's a financial decision. João Cancelo, you look at what's happened over in City, when it doesn't work out, they just move on. Even Arsenal have been able to do it. Even Chelsea do it all the time. Every single club, Liverpool, except United, when a player comes in and it doesn't work out and things start going poorly with them, they just move them on. They're able to. And the big wages is one reason why that's tough to sell. But the other reason is they often don't want to take a huge loss on the player. And so they end up departing for free at the end of their contract, and it becomes a waste. And it takes a long time to get replacements in. We saw it with Pogba. We've seen it with Martial. We've seen it with Bailly, with Van de Beek, with McTominay, with Maguire. It's time and time again. And we can blame the players a lot, sure. There's an aspect of that. But there's certainly an aspect of it all starts at the top. And that is an important thing to note, is that it's all very complicated at United. They should be able to look at it and say, McTominay not in the plans, but we need another player. Let's just sell him for whatever we can get and buy somebody else. But they don't know, if we sell, will we get somebody else in? And it's the same goes for every single position. Donny van de Beek should end up departing end of the day, before the end of the window. He's not been included in the Champions League registration. He's not set to play any part this season, and he should be going. Moving on to the takeover, because I want to talk about this. Obviously, this was a big story that came out in the weekend. Over the weekend, there was a story from the Mail on Sunday that the United takeover was off, that the Glazers are taking the club off the market and returning later when they thought they could get 10 billion or anything like that. And I want to discuss this because there's a few thoughts that I have. First of all, I will say that over the last few weeks, I've not been hearing good things. It's been weird because you get this one story, right, from Neil Custis at the Sun, and You get this one story from Neil Custis at the Sun that says that they're in talks, they're in talks, they're in due diligence for getting the sale finished, and every other story goes the complete other direction. And it's weird when that happens. I don't know why that was happening. It's odd that comes up. But the thing about it is that there's been a lot of false dawns on this, and there's been a lot of seeing only one side of the story and then not gathering it. And there's a lot of people well connected with the Qatari side of things that have said it hasn't been progressing at all. And the same with Ineos, as I've said on my side, as I've heard, not progressing with them at all at the moment. And so there's been a lot of negative signals. When I was looking at the last 2 weeks of the transfer window, really the last month, and looking at how things were operating, it was the most glazery it has looked in a long time. When you look at the economic decisions that were being made, when you look at loans with break clauses, when you look at all of that. And then you look at, they didn't want to commit any money to anything next summer. It tells me that they're expecting to be here. That's my takeaway from it. I don't see somebody operating the way they were operating the last few weeks if they're planning to sell. A $2 million loan, the Cucurella thing, for example, right? An extra $2 million for the final 6 months of the year after January means nothing to Qatar or Ineos. Means nothing. It's nothing to them, right? It's an absolutely nothing to them that if that player was still on the books for the final 6 months of the year, it means nothing. But the deal fell through over the insistence that they could break that loan in January. They paid $10 million up now on a loan fee for Amrabat instead of buying. That's odd. Again, it's like the decisions being made to me have appeared the last few weeks to look like they're really trying to maximize the profitability and the finances for themselves. They wouldn't need to be making these kind of calls, in my opinion, if someone else was about to take the club over. One, because those individuals will not be allowed to be involved in these kind of discussions or things yet. But especially all those loans falling through and the insistence on certain clauses and things like that they didn't want any money committed next year. It feels like something else is happening. So then you get that story coming out. And so I was asking about that. And I don't know that the story is accurate in the way that it's stated. I think that there's some conclusions drawn from it that are maybe incorrect, but there's some truth in it. And the truth of it, as I understand it, is this. The Glazers will say they have not received offers that are of a requisite level to sell the club. Basically, they want more. And they do not see that these offers are sufficient. With the things that have happened over the last few months, they feel that this future value, they could recognize it. I think that they've run into problems getting agreement on something unlike the sale to Ineos type of idea where Joel and Avram could hang on and the other ones would sell. I think they've had a lot of trouble coming to agreement on that. And if that's not on the table, then the full sale is not even close to the price that they're going to say they want, because they wanted to hang on to it because they think it's going to be worth more in the future. That's why a partial sale to Ineos, where they get to keep part of it, even as a minority shareholder, appealed to Joel and Avram especially. So they want more, basically. They're going to want more for that partial sale where the other siblings get paid out more in order to find an agreement there, or they're going to want more for the overall sale. But essentially, that's where it's at. That's where it comes down to. That's the simplicity of it. They want some more. They're not taking the club off the market, but they're not doing the public kind of song and dance to get new offers. They do think in the future they will get more offers. They do think there'll be more parties in the future. So it's not off the market, but it's not like they're actively engaging in the sale process anymore. And they want, and it comes down to they going to say they have not gotten offers that are sufficient for the club. And so they might be pursuing investment, minority investment or alternative options for the things that need to be done. And that's my worry. My worry is when you look at these actions that are happening, I see a possibility that they're gearing up for some kind of minority investment that maybe will take care of the debt, but then it's going to involve the loan for the stadium. That's going to involve paying somebody, a minority partner, getting some type of return on this agreement, and that they're going to need the business to look financially a bit more healthy. That's my concern. That's the concern I have now. It's really hard to get specifics on this, but essentially it comes down to I don't think it's off the market, but they're not actively engaging in selling it unless they're going to get more significant offers. They think they'll get more significant offers later on down the road, and they might pursue some type of minority investment. I don't know. I don't actually know what's going to happen now, but that's kind of the basics of what I've been hearing, or the best that I can figure out. Okay. So that's what we can say there. Obviously, even with that, something needs to happen. It's not good. I'm not happy about that. But we have to see what we can figure out, and obviously I'll be looking into a lot more on that. At the same time, the club can still spend and do things that need to be done, not to the requisite level that we should hope, but they can. So let's look at next summer, because already, and I know people don't really believe this because of the way we operate, but again, that comes down to ownership. But United planned well in ahead. If you recall, I think it was around this same time last year that I put out a video saying United are looking at new goalkeepers, and their plan is to offer David De Gea a reduced wage contract to be a backup, and then probably depart if not. And it took months and months and months for this finally to be out there, and then we ended up with a new goalkeeper, and they were scouting all year. But it was around this time, and they actually do plan quite a bit ahead. Believe it or not, they plan quite a bit ahead for things. And it is interesting because, the names certainly change through the year. They scout, they look at stuff, things happen, all of that, and the names can change. But the strategy is actually there, usually a year ahead. And one of the things they've been doing, I know certainly with Dominic Jordan, with the new kind of structure in place, is to is kind of to identify a lot of players that are rather interesting. And I'm working on a few names that I'll talk about in a second that I'm not seeing anywhere that I believe United are looking to pursue next summer. And I'm already hearing some of these, and that's pretty cool to see, actually. So I hope that's what happens. But as of right now, the plan, I kind of touched on this before, but there's an overall plan between now and next summer. And some of it was completed now, and some of it's going to be coming forward. First, I want to talk about the youth side. On the youth side, United have done a bit of a clear out on the under-21s. They've moved a lot of these players on who are getting a little bit older, that didn't look like they were going to make it. The crop of under-16s at United is understood to be way more talented, way more successful, and really it's a long process rebuilding the academy. It started a while ago. And the crop, the younger kids, is especially viewed as being incredibly talented and have a lot better chance of getting players out of them than the last crop of under-21s. Obviously, you still have Kabi Manu and Hannibal and Garnacho kind of from there that are sort of on the first team or around it or expected to get into it. But there's a bit of an under-21 rebuild kind of going on still. They did quite a clear out. They're looking at, it was reported, and this is one of the names, this Croatian kid as a striker. They're looking at quite a few other names as well to try to add to this youth roster because there's positions they feel they need to get some youth players in so they don't constantly just have to buy everyone and they can get some youth players. And with the FFP things coming up and the cap getting lower and lower, that is going to be necessary for most clubs. City have product from their academy they can bring in for this. Chelsea have products from their academy they can bring in and sell and help, all these things. But they have these things and United do not, and they need them. And so one of the areas of focus will be center back. Another one will be right back, and then in the forwards and wings position as well. They've done a lot in the midfield, and they actually have quite a few players coming through there. So that's one aspect. In terms of senior transfers next summer, what's being focused on now is, number one, the midfield situation. In terms of the number, like a number 6, and as well, that's the main one. Expect potentially one major addition, maybe 2. If McTominay departs, depending on Kobbie Mainoo, it's going to depend on Kobbie Mainoo, what happens there, and Hannibal Mejbri, if there's 1 or 2 next summer, but they're definitely already working on that, and I'll talk more about that one in a second. They're looking at wingers, and we'll talk about Sancho's situation at the end, but they've been looking at wingers. They were offered or had some preliminary discussions with Yeremy Pino. There's a few other names that are out there, but they're looking at right wingers so that they have options. And then right back. My understanding of the situation, believe it or not, is that they're more intention to potentially letting Dalot go if both fullbacks do not come through fully and they do not feel they have a top-level fullback. They're more intentioned likely at this point in time to let Diogo Dalot go and replace him, because Wan-Bissaka is sort of a defensive specialist. It's viewed that having him as a second option if they buy another fullback would be more beneficial than Diogo Dalot. It's actually not about the quality of each individual player, but if neither of them are to the top level by the end of the year, then it's more likely Dalot departs because Wan-Bissaka has essentially some world-class defensive traits. And then center back. Both sides of the center back side of it, left center back and right center back, they're looking at. So left center back, right back, midfield, and right wing are the positions of focus for next summer, for scouting right now, for determining targets through this season. In the midfield, and I'm going to put something out about this maybe later in the week, maybe next week, once I get a little bit more detail because I'm working on it. But there is a target United have for the midfield as a potential long-term Casemiro replacement. That isn't Sofian Amrabat. And that doesn't mean Amrabat may not stick around at the club. But it's going to depend on Kobbie Mainoo, it's going to depend on Casemiro, and it's going to depend on kind of how Amrabat does at United as well. If he absolutely destroys it, tears it up, looks like a top-class 6 on his own and in his own right, that may change things. But for now, they have plans for a long-term Casemiro replacement that isn't Kobbie Mainoo necessarily, or at least that they want to have as well as Kobbie Mainoo. And that was one of the reasons they're reticent to buy Sofian Amrabat right now. And they even thought they could see if they could get it done this summer. So I'll be putting some more about all of that because I'm doing a bit more research on it still at the moment. But that's going to be a huge decision point for next summer. And one of the main focuses and something that, is quite important. So more to come there. In terms of Jadon Sancho, obviously the situation you have here is that, Erik ten Hag didn't include him in the squad, said he wasn't training the requisite levels. Jadon Sancho came out on Twitter and put out a statement saying that this wasn't the case, that there's other reasons. Now you have a drama with Antony too in terms of the legal situation that now he's already been dropped by Brazil. It doesn't look good. I expect United are going to have to do something about this. The evidence is less public for now. If it starts getting leaked out of Brazil, which is very possible, that apparently there's images and text and things like that, I don't see how United can do anything but be consistent with their decision on Mason Greenwood and suspend a player. So we'll see. But it's a mess. And the situation with Sancho is there's obviously a couple sides to this matter. Number one is obviously, there's his side. Feels like his career is kind of going down the tubes at United. Feels like he's not getting chances. Feels like he's not getting a start. And understandably, I think Antony often has been pretty poor I think that I find it really interesting, people considering him having a good game against Arsenal. I don't think he did. 59% passing, 15 possessions lost, 0 expected assists, 0.03 expected goals. You look at that compared to the output on the other side of Marcus Rashford, a goal, 0.5 expected assists. Even the goal, the first goal, the equalizer from Arsenal that happened, people watch, it starts with a poor press from Antony that leads to a 2v1, and then there's other mistakes out the back. But that doesn't really matter. The problem comes still down to this point on ownership and how the club is run. Here's the issue. If Jadon Sancho is not a right winger and he's not going to get chances on the right wing, on the left you have Garnacho and Rashford. In the center you have Højlund and Martial. On the right you have Antony. At any top club, what are they going to do? They're going to make a tough choice, and they're going to say, we're going to sell either Sancho or Garnacho. And that's a fact. If we have our 2 left wingers nailed down and we have 3 of them, we're selling one. And we're going to use that money to buy on the right and create a balanced squad and do this. But Glazonomics say you don't do that. So a player gets stuck onto, even when he wasn't in the team last year, even when it was already difficult last year, even when there was already talk of him leaving. And you end up with this constant drama because then players get stuck, they get frustrated, things go sideways. And so really the blame all comes down to the top, because if he was not going to be used as a starter, he should have been sold by now. Because if Garnacho is ahead of him on the left and Rashford's ahead of him on the left, which we know, and if Antony's ahead of him on the right, and he's not really going to play there, which he barely has under Ten Hag, then he should be sold. And it's that simple. And that would work better for all parties. He should have been let go and replaced. And my understanding is they're open now at this point, and they have been for a little while now, to letting him go. But it's the way that things are run that it's very hard to move these players on at United. It's on big wages. It's hard to do, and they're not prepared to sell and spend what would be necessary to replace. And that is what it all comes back to at the end of the day. So we're going to have to see how they resolve this situation, especially if something goes on with Antony, how this gets resolved in terms of options. But, the issue is, sure, even if a player is not performing, you still have to maintain professionalism, but at the same time, it's understandable, and it's also comes down to the club itself. As I said, it's really, for me, that's what it comes down to. A manager has the right to pick players that they want, and a manager has the right to get rid of players that they don't want. And they always should have that right. I felt that way with Jose, with Pogba and Martial, and the club went the other way and went with player power, and we saw what that has done to the club. A manager should always have the right to get rid of the players that they want to get rid of, to not select them, to not utilize them. And at the same time, if that's happening, then the club should be replacing those players and letting them go and not messing up their careers. And at United, that is what happens, and that's why you get a lot of unhappy players. And it's a problem that they have to sort out now, that I think Eric and Sancho have to sort out, because there's no other option at the moment. And we need them to sort it out. So that's what I've got for now, but I would definitely keep an eye on that either way for next summer, because it is a position they're looking at, in addition to the other ones mentioned. Okay, that's what I've got for today. I'll be doing some videos over the next few days and through the break. This is going to continue outside of summer. As I said, a lot happens outside of summer, so make sure to keep watching. In addition, some different type of content. Have somebody on, not me, who may do some analysis and things like that, and some other type of content as well. Okay, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. I'll see you in the next one.